Hey guys, it's Mr. Jobber here. I hope you're all well, you're at home, you are safe and you are happy. Much like all of the other teachers, I am missing you all tremendously. Life isn't quite the same without seeing all of your cheery faces every day. And with that, a particular shout out to both Hammerhead and Basking Sharks. I have chosen this book with you in mind. You guys are all great and we miss you a lot. For the book that I will be reading, it is quite a long book, so instead of filming myself reading the whole thing to you, I decided it might be a better idea if I just record myself speaking. Kind of like an audiobook, I guess, but with some differences here and there. That way, if you'd like to find a quiet space in your house, put your headphones in, close your eyes and disappear into the exciting and magical world of the Evernight, then you are able to do so. If you haven't already, go and check out the Repton Reads video on the Repton Manor School website page under the Home Learning and Reading tab. On that video, we have a little look at the book, including the front cover, the blurb, and talk about very briefly what might be inside it. Or if you are a bit of a reading rogue and just want to dive in and listen to a book that you don't know anything about, then I have nothing but respect for you and carry on listening. For the time being, we will be reading one chapter a week of Evernight. But if this is something that you like and enjoy and would like out more frequently, then drop your year group email address an email and let them know that you'd like more. As unfortunately, I can't say like and subscribe because there is no like nor subscribe button. Anyway, I've been rambling on for quite a while. As you can tell, I've missed going on tangents to you all. So, let's start reading. Evernight by Ross Mackenzie. Chapter 1. Shadow Jack. There was a man made of midnight, and his name was Shadow Jack. The name suited him well. His clothes were dark and his hair was even darker still. His eyes were pools of shadow. As he slipped through the winding labyrinth of the slums and the night our story begins, his intentions were the darkest of all. He crossed a wooden bridge to a putrid lump of half-flooded land cut off from the rest of the slums. Filth lay thick on crowded leaning dwellings, and the rain-swollen river was as black as tar and coated with a film of weed and scum. There were a few streets or alleys or courts. Mostly there were only waterways and flooded ditches, canals crossing this way and that, with houses built upon crazy-looking wooden stilts to escape the water, which seemed to swell every minute with the rain. This was Devil's Island, and, even at such a late hour, there were huddles of coats gathered on wooden boats, shifting movements in the darkest corners. They left Shadow Jack to his business. He took a deep sniff of the soaking air, searching through the many layers of death and filth and disease. There you are. Cutting down an alley, he came out to the bank of a canal and sniffed again. Somewhere nearby, over the rain, he heard an argument and a fight, and suddenly all was quiet. Across the waterway, the flicker of a lamp caught his sharp eyes, where a sorry figure stumbled to a glassless window and tipped a bucket of sewage out into the water. Shadow Jack made a movement, quick, fluid, and at once he was gone from that spot in the alley, and a black raven the size of an eagle was soaring into the wild night. The raven circled, looking down over the winding waterways and canals and crumbling bits of Devil's Island, and then it swooped down, coming to rest on the ledge of a high window. The raven hopped into the damp-ridden apartment within. With a sound like dark velvet, it became a man once more, wrapped in its midnight cloak. The room was bare, save for a simple bed and a wooden chair under the small window. It seemed, at first glance, that there was nobody there, but Shadow Jack heard a heartbeat fast and frightened. "We both know you're here, Jenny Winter," he said in a low, dangerous voice. "You know what I am. Your tricks won't cut it with me. I hear your heart, hear how frightened you are, and you should be frightened." He stopped, because across the room there was a shimmer in the air, and a woman appeared before his eyes as if she'd been wearing a cloak made of the very fabric of the world and had slipped it off. Jenny Winter raised a trembling hand. In her fingers She clutched a thin wooden stick, fitted like a pistol, with a round of chambers, but instead of bullets, these chambers held small bottles, and inside the bottles were coils of glowing coloured light. Shadow Jack picked a speck off his coat sleeve and examined it before flicking it away. "You can't kill me with magic, you know. 12 of you have tried and already failed." He took a small step towards her. Then she raised her wand. The spells glowed fiercely in their bottles. "One more step, and I'll send you through that wall." Shadow Jack turned his eyes skyward. "Look, we both know this journey has come to an end. You're on your own, Jenny. Wherever you go, I'll find you. You've been running so long, you must be exhausted." His voice had begun to take on a soothing tone. "Imagine how wonderful it would be to feel free of the weight you've been carrying. Give me the doomsday spell, Jenny, and it'll all go away." Jenny's thoughts betrayed her. Her hand made an involuntary movement to the place in her coat where she had stowed the most precious object of all. Her eyes met his. Shadow Jack lunged forward. It all happened in a fraction of a moment. Jenny Winter flicked her wand at him, and one of the magic bottles shone bright as a new coin in the sun. The tip of the wind glowed, and a bullet of blazing light hit Shadow Jack in the chest. It sent him crashing through the rotten brick wall, and he was falling. Jenny watched him. When he hit the water, splash, she seemed to wake from a daze, and she turned and ran, barging down the stairs and out into the driving rain, out of the alley, across a narrow wooden footbridge, the river churning below, and along another short street, falling on her front in a hurry and panic, staggering back up and continuing on, then across Devil's Gate Bridge to the city proper. There was no plan in Jenny's mind, no safe place to run to. The rain and wind pelted her, merciless and cold, and her hair stuck to her face. Around a corner, down a narrow winding path, she scattered a pack of drunks, and they yelled and cursed after her. She ran and ran and ran until her lungs burned and her legs stiffened, and every breath was a knife in her chest. At last, she stopped in a dark, deserted lane, branching off Milk Street, collapsing to her knees in a puddle, sucking in ragged gulps of air. But there was no time to rest. She struggled up and found a manhole cover and pointed her wand at the ground. One of the bottles in the round lit up, and a blazing spell shot out of her wand and hit the metal cover, leaving a crumbling black hole in the street. The sewer stream below was a foaming torrent. Jenny knew at once if she tried to escape through the tunnels, she'd surely drown. Something moved up by the rooftops. A huge raven circled down through the storm, landed in the lane up ahead. It spread its wings, made a movement, and, in a swirl of rain and mist, Shadow Jack was back. Jenny raised her wand and shot a spell through the night towards him. He dodged it. Desperately she shot another and another until each of the spell bottles loaded in her wand was empty. "No more," said Shadow Jack. He held out an open hand, and to his amazement, Jenny reached into her coat and produced a small box of polished wood. He stared at it, hardly able to believe that, after all these years, here it was. The Doomsday Spell. The key to his freedom. He reached out, but Jenny Winter spat at him, spun away and tossed the box into the coursing sewer water below. "Oh, you hag!" Shadow Jack clubbed Jenny on the side of her head, knocking her down, and stared into the rushing stream below. When he turned back, she was fiddling madly with the compartments in her belt. She pulled out a bottle, tried to load it into the wand's revolver chamber, but he kicked her hand, and both the wand and spell bottle went spinning. As he stood over her, something on her glinted, and Shadow Jack reached down and grabbed the slender chain she wore around her neck. With a jerk, he snapped it, and a wooden pendant slid into his hand. The pendant was the shape of a teardrop, and something had been etched into it, a symbol so simplistic that it might have been the work of a child. A bird in flight. Shadow Jack gazed at it for a moment, then reached into one of the many pockets in his long black coat. When he brought his hand out and opened his fist, there were 11 identical pendants nestling in his palm. "Yours is the last," he said, dropping the pendant he'd taken from her into the pile. "A shame one of the 13 was destroyed. I would have liked to complete the collection." He closed his long fingers around the trinkets and tipped them back into his pocket. "I want you to know, Jenny Winter, that some of your friends broke easily when I found them over the years.
without much persuasion at all in fact. A few of them begged and bargained, and names and locations spilled out of them, until only your name remained.
Jenny stared up at him through her soaking red hair, blood from her mouth mixed with the rain and tears on her face. In all the old legends, the Jinn are powerful beings, she said, but you're not powerful. You're weak, you're broken and desperate, and all I feel for you is pity. Shadow Jack crouched down, and Jenny noticed for the first time that he cast no shadow.
I don't care what you feel. I only care about finding that spell and claiming back my freedom.
You don't know what you're doing. If Hester gets the spell, it will change everything.
What happens in this world is of no concern to me. When I am free, there are other worlds waiting. In any case, you won't have to worry about the future.
Shadow Jack leaned in, almost as though he were going to kiss her. He opened his mouth wide, the bones in his jaw clicking and snapping, revealing rows of sharp teeth and a gaping, rotten darkness. Jenny could not move, could not breathe.
Are you frightened of me now, Jenny Winter?
Jenny screamed.